Hey, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Migraine Mentors Minicast. I'm one of your migraine mentors, Dr. Erik Reis, and I'm really interested in talking about this topic today. We're going to discuss how daylight savings times, whether you're springing ahead or falling back because it's going to be up and coming in the next couple of weeks, we're going to talk about how these changes actually alter your sleep, your mood, your energy, and more importantly, how they can actually impact migraine and migraine attacks, which for those of you out there who struggle with migraine attacks, you know inherently that this has been an issue for you. But for those of you who are just maybe dipping your toe in the water or just coming across this video, I want you to understand that this is actually a really big deal. If time changes kind of throw your brain into a bit of a tailspin, like there's a really good chance that you're already aware of it and you're already thinking about, okay, what is going to happen during daylight savings time? And it's really important. So if you live in the US outside of Arizona or Hawaii, daylight savings time this year in 2025 starts on November 2nd, which means you have less than 4 weeks to prepare for it. And that's a really important thing because whether or not we still need DST, whether or not you are on grounds for keeping it or getting rid of it, it doesn't matter. You're going to be dealing with it. And so what's important for this is that if you're somebody who struggles with chronic migraine, then what you have to realize is that this is a really important facet for you because at some point in the next couple of weeks, you're going to have your sleep altered inherently, whether you like to or not. And as weird as it sounds, even if we're like gaining an extra hour in the fall, sometimes that can still lead to having people, struggle with their sleep and sleep outcomes. So we put this together this week because it's timely, it's ahead of the curve, it's giving you enough time and energy to be able to prevent and be proactive. But then more importantly, too, it's just something that should be top of mind for you. So here's why time changes actually matter for migraine. There was an interesting study done in 2025, which found that migraine frequency actually spikes 1 week after the spring switch in daylight savings time in the springtime. They also found like a small improvement in the fall, which is good news for those of you in November when daylight savings time gains an extra hour. But it wasn't for everybody, okay? So this kind of just points to like giving more data about synchronizing these stressors, how they impact your migraine, and more importantly, this effect that it has on sleep. We know that migraine has really measurable circadian fingerprints. Attacks cluster usually at certain times around the day or on the year. For those of you who struggle with migraine and dealing with your hormonal cycle, you know that it also cycles a bit too with your different fluctuations with your menstrual cycle. But we know that melatonin is actually lower in people who struggle with migraine, especially during these attacks. So there's inherently, fluctuations in hormones. We're aware of this, but then more importantly as well too, melatonin is really important for sleep onset. So you'll see this connection between sleep and migraine all day, every day. And if you can hopefully improve one, theoretically you should be able to improve the other, but it's not always the case for everybody. So we know sleep deprivation and fragmentation are definitely important factors for this. They're definitely important factors for like same day migraine triggers. So if you slept poorly the night before, there's probably a higher likelihood that you're going to develop a migraine the same day. And unfortunately, while having a migraine attack does not predict sleep duration, the pain associated with it does. So that's kind of interesting because the more intense your migraine is, probably the worse you're going to sleep inherently, which is that positive feedback loop that we all kind of want to have going against us is that if we have less pain, we want to sleep better. If we have more pain, we want to sleep even better. So even small changes in like having sleep changes, circadian rhythms, things like that can actually have pretty big outcomes for migraine attacks. And we've known this for a while, but the data is quite rife with it. Now that you know about it, what can you actually do about it? Well, here's what I'm going to tell you is we kind of have like a 7-day fallback routine that we put together in the newsletter. And I want to highlight it just really quickly. So the first part is a week before the daylight savings times, whether it's going to be in November this year or even in the spring next year, what you need to do is you kind of have this like phase out period where you're actually going to modify your sleep slowly over time. So a week before the change on November 2nd, what you want to do is you want to move your bedtime and wake times like 10 to 15 minutes earlier every day. Over time, what that's going to do is it's going to allow you to get into that sleep window where the time change won't even really matter for you. So we know that this kind of like gentle advance, this phase advance, they call it, is actually what like sleep clinicians and like circadian rhythm specialists will use for patients who struggle with this. So that's probably the first easy step for you. The next thing that we've talked about ad nauseum with the Migraine Mentors newsletter is making light your friend and not just your enemy. So Andrew Huberman is massive on this. He always talks about how the first thing you should do when you get up in the morning is just step outside and look straight into the sunlight. Now, don't look at the sun. What he says is you should look in the sunlight in the horizon and get those different colors to hit your retina and reset your circadian rhythms, this suprachiasmatic nucleus in your hypothalamus. You don't need to know all of that, but what you do need to understand is that light is your friend. And so getting 30 to 60 minutes of outdoor lighting in the morning within an hour of waking, that's the biggest factor. It can anchor these internal clocks. It can tune your circadian rhythms even better. It can allow you to have better wakefulness during the day and get you to sleep faster at night too. So similarly, in the same token, right? So after the sun starts setting, dim your screens, lower your lights, consider blue blocking lenses. I wear them every night before I go to bed, whether I'm watching TV or reading or doing something. My wind down routine just inherently has them included in that. But there's actually some interesting randomized controlled trials showing like evening blue blockers can help you advance your melatonin onset, which means that your melatonin will release at a specific time. And it can improve sleep in these at-risk groups that are, struggling with it. People with PTSD, anxiety, depression, individuals with migraine, chronic pain, you name it, they're all kind of grouped into those camps. Evening blue lights can delay sleep timing. We know it can delay sleep quality. We know it can delay sleep duration. There's all of these factors that it can have an impact on. And so by managing that, you can manage expectations and most likely improve your sleep. The third thing is you have to protect your sleep, right? So unfortunately, a lot of people are dealing with insomnia. I think like 1 in 3 people worldwide deal with insomnia or sleep apnea in some fashion. In a lot of these situations, these are dietary, lifestyle, habits, choices, and unfortunate beliefs that people have, but there are things that can be done about it. What we're finding is that cognitive behavioral therapy is a really effective way to help people who deal with insomnia. It's actually been shown, multiple clinical studies have been shown cut migraine days while simultaneously improving sleep outcomes. We know it's just a super simple, basic tool. A lot of them are digital and they're online and they're there for you for free for resources. It can have really beneficial effects on improving sleep, which inherently can have beneficial effects on improving your migraine frequency and intensity. So they go hand in hand, they're kind of in tandem. Inherently, if you fix one, you'll probably fix the other. What I mean by that is, if you improve your sleep, you'll probably improve your migraine outcomes. But also, too, inherently, if you improve your migraine outcomes, you could inherently improve your sleep. So something to consider and talk with your provider about. The last thing is using melatonin. Now, there's a bit of a controversy with this. I know Peter Attia has kind of refuted the thought process of using melatonin, or at least the higher doses of melatonin. He's kind of more of like a 0.5 milligram, maybe even less than that. But there are some randomized double-blind controlled trials, which are the most powerful trials that have the most power and kind of facts to be able to take to the bank. There's a trial that showed that 3 milligrams of melatonin supplementation was as effective as 25 milligrams of amitriptyline, which a lot of you inherently are taken, have taken, or have been asked to take. And it's actually better than placebo for prevention as well, too. So with inherently fewer side effects. So there's a chance you might not do well with melatonin. Some people will get super groggy the next day. Some people just don't respond to it. Clinically, I have yet to find who those people are or aren't. So I can't really give you any better advice than that. But if you do decide to do this, talk with your clinician, have a discussion with them. If you choose to dose melatonin, do it 30 to 60 minutes before you go to sleep. That's kind of the onset for absorption, improving melatonin production. And of course, pairing together with all the other things we talked about, you should be set up for success. So hopefully that helps you a little bit more. Best practices during the day, outside of what we just discussed, are twofold. One, cutting caffeine off at noon. Now, I love caffeine. I can't have too much of it, but I love a good green tea in the morning. I'm about to have my second one, but I always cut it off before noon. So that's important because caffeine has a 6-hour half-life. Well, what does that mean? Well, if you have a cup of coffee at noon, or you have a drink at noon, let's say it's 100 milligrams of caffeine in that cup. By 6 p.m., you still have 50 milligrams or 50% of that caffeine rolling around in your brain and your nervous system. Well, by midnight, especially if you struggle with insomnia, sleep issues, by midnight, you still have 25 milligrams or 25% of that caffeine still rolling around your nervous system. And if you're somebody who is sensitive to caffeine, or if you're somebody who's struggling with sleep, it's probably a bad combination. So you got to be really strict with your caffeine. And if you're somebody who gets like rebound headaches, stuff like that, we're not cutting you off from caffeine. We're just telling you got to be careful with the timing of the caffeine. The second thing and the last thing is you just got to make sure like when you're planning these things out and you're making changes to your diet, your habits, your lifestyle, stuff like that, just make sure you have an action plan set if you do have a flare up, right? So these can be your rescue medications. These can be different neuromodulation devices. It could be your Truvaga. It could be anything that's going to help you kind of like manage and stabilize symptoms as you transition through this period. Consistency, early treatments are going to be key for this. And as we've talked about a couple newsletters ago, like even like a NSAID combination can be really effective for managing symptoms. So just do what you need to. And at the end of the day, here's the thing. All we're trying to get to you and show you is that timing is of the essence, especially when managing migraine, right? So your brain loves rhythms. In fact, it like runs on rhythms. Every single organ and tissue inside your brain and body has a circadian rhythm to it. Cellular turnover has rhythms to it. Your gut microbiome has cellular rhythms to it. So there's these rhythms that go back and forth, and there's so much to be said about keeping those rhythms in check. When you get off those rhythms, that's really where you start seeing health become compromised. So these small proactive routines and steps can be a really effective way for you to help manage changes with daylight savings time. So take them, own them, run with them. It's time for you to work with your clock, not against it. And so, with that said, thank you for joining us. Once again, my name is Dr. Erik Reis. I'm one of the migraine mentors here, putting on this newsletter, this podcast, and all the production and platforms we're putting together. If you are somebody who's subscribed to our newsletter, thank you so much for supporting us. We can't thank you enough. We're growing slowly but surely, and it's just awesome to get the feedback from people who are patients, who are providers, who are just caretakers, people who struggle with migraine. I mean, the list goes on. And we can't thank you enough for the feedback and information you've given us. If you're not somebody who's following us, what are you waiting for? If you love this video, if you love this podcast, if you love the information we're putting out, we've taken 20 plus years of clinical experience and expertise and are literally distilling it down to this newsletter to help you have an easier time getting off your medications, managing your symptoms holistically, integratively, to support you structurally, neurologically, and metabolically so that you can take care of yourself and own your health. So if that sounds great to you, click the subscribe button in the link below. I look forward to seeing you at the next edition, and thank you once again.